Hey guys, got a daily rant here. This is a website I stumbled on probably a few years ago. It's pretty funny, and I think it would make a great movie or a short film. It's called The Beatles Never Broke Up. It's thebeatlesneverbroakeup.com. And it's this guy's story. It's an interesting story. It reminds me of a book that I read not too long ago called The Fold by Peter Clines. And if you like sci-fi, I suggest that you check this out. Get it on Kindle, hardback, paperback, CD, or on Audible. It's pretty neat, and it goes right along the same lines as this thing. So anyway, this guy claims to have this thing, this cassette tape called Everyday Chemistry by the Beatles. And if you listen to the music, it's all downloadable on this website, but it almost sounds like some of their music kind of remixed. But it's neat. The story that goes along with it is kind of cool. And like I said, I think I would love to shoot a short film about this with some friends. I even kicked an email to this address to see, hey, would you mind if I did that? I never had a reply. Anyway, the guy claims to be called James Richards. I doubt that it's his real name. But anyway, it's still a fun story. The following is an actual account of my experiences as of recently. Because of the nature of what happened, I must remain anonymous until I feel it is safe to reveal my name, but for now you can refer to me as James Richards. On September 9th, 2009, I experienced something that I am still having trouble believing happened to me. I came into the possession of a cassette tape containing a Beatles album that was never released. In fact, not only was it never released, but it was never recorded. But it was recorded many years after they broke up. And no, I'm not talking about Klaatu. Now, this is where the story becomes slightly more unbelievable. And it is almost embarrassing to attempt to explain the incident to you for fear of viewing me as completely absurd. I must assure you, I am not insane or on drugs. I hope, and hopefully the audio from this tape will be enough proof that there is more than we think out there. I live in Livermore, California, but on September 9th, I was driving home from Turlock, and after visiting a friend for a few days, I had my dog with me, and I didn't have any plans for the day, so I decided to take a drive through a place called Del Puerto Canyon, just west of Turlock. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. There is a scenic road that is a fun drive and actually goes through to Livermore. I hadn't taken a cruise through it for a while, so I thought I would take this way home. It was about 2 p.m. A ways into the canyon, my dog started acting like she needed to use the restroom, so I pulled over to the first available parking area to the side of the road and let her out while I stretched. At first, I didn't notice, but then I heard the barking from about 30 yards away. My dog was chasing a rabbit. Hello, Alice. Now my dog is pretty good, but if she's chasing something that there's no stopping her. So the only thing I could do was become part of the chase. They already had about 40 yards head start on me. So I had to really book it. The uneven ground and soft patches made it difficult to run, and it wasn't very far into the chase I had stepped into a rabbit hole, fell, and knocked myself unconscious. When I woke up, I was in a room with some furniture and electronics in it. I was taken care of with a bandage on my head, but I still felt uneasy about the situation because where I fell and hit my head was in a very rural, unpopulated area with no houses, and outside the window of the room I could hear traffic. Excuse me, I'm having allergy problems today. I wasn't near the window in the room. It was actually on the other side next to an unusual looking electronic machine that I didn't recognize from anywhere I've seen before. The only reason it stood out was because it seemed out of place in a person's home, which most of the room resembled. I decided to get up and look out the window, but the door opened and in ran my dog, who was pretty excited to see me. When I looked up, there was a man standing at the door. He was about 6 feet tall, had medium-long black hair, and was dressed casually. Nice, but gave me a greasy vibe, if you know what I mean. He introduced himself as Jonas, and I asked him if I was okay. He asked me if I was okay, which I said yes. He said he found me unconscious in a field with my dog barking at me, so I thanked him for helping me and my dog out, and that I was surprised my dog even came back to me. I then asked him the questions that would make me start wondering if I had in fact gone crazy. I asked him, "Where am I?" "About 20 feet from where I found you," he replied. I told him that that couldn't be possible because there were no houses within at least 20 miles from where I had last remembered being. He then told me that what he was going to say next will be very shocking and unbelievable, and that if he didn't actually experience it himself, then he wouldn't believe it. He took a look at the machine near the window and looked back at me, and he said he transported me into a parallel Earth. Where was I? He said he traveled to our Earth dimension and found me knocked out on the blazing heat with nobody around to help me out. Normally, he said he doesn't take outsiders through a portal, but in my case, he thought I needed urgent help. I immediately started asking questions about traveling to parallel worlds, since all I knew about the topic was YouTube videos of Michio Kaku. He told me to slow down and then he would explain himself. Apparently, in his world, a parallel travel machine can be purchased quite easily. While not cheap, it's pretty popular, even though the machine can be dangerous enough to cause death. In the 1950s of his dimension, the government was faced with the decision to continue to fund a space program, I'm guessing NASA, or a parallel dimension program called ARPD. I can't remember what he said it stood for. I'm pretty sure the PD is parallel dimension, and I remember the acronym because I noticed it on a lot of the electronics in the room I was in. He then explained that the real danger of using one of the machines was exploring new dimensions. Since there are an infinite amount of Earths in other dimensions, only a small amount of them have been explored. The problem with exploring unknown dimensions is the chance that you will die somehow once you walk through the portal door. He told me that people die from falling, that the ground isn't close enough to where the portal opens, die from drowning. There are worlds covered in water, hard to reopen a portal underwater. Die from fire, atmospheric issues. Excuse me again. He said in order for people to avoid this, they would have to know that there would be similar ground in the dimension they were traveling to. So his government began to research worlds that were safe to transport to, even creating spots where people could choose a menu of worlds to go to that were all safe. He then explained that I already read that part. Many of the worlds were lush vegetation worlds, and that were never ruined by man, only to be invaded by the large overcrowded population of the travelers world. He said something about the new industries that opened up because of this, one of them being something like dimensional life brokers. These people offered the chance to live as someone new in an already established similar world that doesn't know of dimensional travel, nor that there are people crossing the dimensional border. Jonas said that he was an explorer for one of these dimensional travel agencies and was looking for new uncharted dimensions and came upon my Earth. We talked about a lot of things. It was interesting to see what similarities and differences we had between worlds. Food, culture, TV, technology. We covered a lot. We also started talking about music, which was an interesting topic because there were many of the same bands between our worlds that existed, including the Beatles. When their name got brought up, Jonas mentioned that his brother just got back from seeing them at a concert recently, which I gave a weird look and said, You mean they are still together? And he said, yeah. I then told him about how they broke up in our world, and that John and George passed away. Apparently in his world, they were all alive, healthy, and on tour. Jonas then had me follow him into another room that had a bookshelf looking thing with some cassette tapes. Yes, the music ones. Apparently CDs never caught on in this world. And a tape player / radio / record player, though it didn't look quite like the type of radios we have. The speakers looked more like crinkled cardboard, but sounded pretty good. I didn't get too good a look at the speakers, but they certainly weren't round. They were almost like a tall accordion. I gotta take some medicine here. Yeah. Gotta love asthma and allergies and all this other stuff, right? That's better. At least I can breathe now. Alright. So where were we? The tall accordion, right? Okay. The Beatles album he had that was store-bought had real cover art was Sgt. Pepper's, which the cover looks slightly different than the one we have, but the songs were all the same. The other 6 Beatles tapes he had were all like somebody recorded them onto a blank cassette. For him, I wrote the song titles on a card slipped in the case. A couple of album titles written on the tapes I recognized, but there were 4 that I had never heard of before. He played a few songs from them, which was totally surreal to hear the Beatles music that was never made, at least in our world. We talked about it a little bit. Yeah. We talked about it a little bit. He said a girl made the tapes for him while he was in upper school, what they call high school. She was a huge fan of them and wanted him to listen to them. He popped out the first tape and was putting in the second when I told him he should record me a copy of one so I could take it back with me, thinking it wouldn't be a big deal. Well, the look Jonas gave me when I said this is part of the reason I am remaining anonymous. Not only did it sort of scare me, but it had a very serious, almost creepy look to it, followed by the phrase, not word for word, I can't remember exactly what he said. No, you are not to take anything back with you to your world. No pictures, no souvenirs, no tapes, nothing. I asked him why, and he wouldn't really say, except for that it was for my safety. I wasn't to take anything back. Of course, I'm not the type of person to go through all this parallel world stuff and not grab something to prove this outrageous story of my experiences. So for the moment, I told him I wouldn't take anything back and changed the subject. After about an hour later, after some more talking, I heard a doorbell ring, and he left the room to check the door. I knew that I might not have another chance to take something, so I grabbed one of the tapes and put it in my pocket. And then then shuffled the tapes around to make them look less obvious something was missing. When he came back inside the room, I was kind of hungry. To just get out of the room, I mixed up the tapes a little. He already said that. Did I? Okay. Anyway, when he came back inside, I said I was kind of hungry. To just get us out of the room, I mixed the tapes up a little, so it was hard to tell one was missing, but I didn't want to be there when he found out. So then he took me into the other room and fed me. For the most part, the food tasted like ours, but there was different product names and colors. Purple ketchup was the strangest. We talked a little bit more, and then I expressed the notion that I should be going because it was getting late. The time of day was identical to ours, as is all worlds. We went back in the room with the machines in it. I grabbed my dog and shook Jonah's hand for taking care of me after I was knocked out. I thanked him again and stepped through the portal, which felt like getting wet but staying dry the entire time. Really weird. Kind of like Stargate. When I put my dog on the ground, she even shook herself as though she was wet. Back in our world, I could see my car still on the road, and there was still sunlight. No, there was still. Back in our world, I could see my car on the road still, and there was straight line burn mark on the ground from the portal had shown. That's typed weird. Burn mark on the ground from where the portal had shown up. It was dark outside, and the only reason I noticed the burn was because it was smoking from the heat. I walked back to my car, didn't run this time, and drove home. The worst part was I couldn't even listen to the tape on the way home because I don't have a tape player in my car. I actually wasn't even able to listen to it at home either for the same reason, and had to go to Walmart to buy a tape player just to listen to it. Unfortunately, I don't have any information about the tape other than what was written on the card sleeve. The track names were written, as well as the album title, Everyday Chemistry. Everything else about it is as mysterious to you as it is to me. It also wasn't like I could have asked the guy anything about it, especially after taking it from him. I'll post more about my experiences in the coming days, but I have to go to work right now, and this post is entirely long enough. If anyone has any questions they want to ask me about this incident, I've set up an email address so you can contact me at thebeatlesneverbroakeup@yahoo.com. I'll try to answer everyone's question as best as possible. You know, Yahoo just got hacked recently. I wonder if somebody could break in there. Not that I'm suggesting you do that. Don't do that. That would be illegal. Anyway, lastly, if there's anyone out there that has experienced anything like this, then please contact me. Some of the things this guy said to me almost make me wonder if it isn't the first time dimensional travelers have been there. James Richards. So, that's it. This website was posted years ago. Nothing else has been posted about it. But you can go here and you can listen to the weird mixed up songs. He also uploaded some pictures. I guess there's a desert, and that must be the rabbit hole. There's the tape. General Electric. Reusable tape cartridge. 60 minutes. Side A. It's a white cassette with a orange General Electric label. I've actually looked for those. I've got an eBay search for General Electric tapes. I've seen ones with blue labels. I've never seen one with an orange label or a red label. In case that's not orange, I guess that's red. Just curious. I thought I would make a prop. And if you're going to make a prop, you might as well be accurate. If you want to be accurate, you need the same color scheme. I suppose I could make one, but it would be easier if I could just buy one. So yeah, well, that's it. It's an interesting story. And as I said, it reminds me of that book I was telling you about. What was it called? The Fold by Peter Clines. I don't want to tell you too much about this book, because if I do, it could spoil it. So be warned. I'm going to tell you a little bit. If you don't want to know, stop listening. It gets way deep down into things, and this guy gets hired to go check out this government project that's basically or he thinks is a transporter. You know, kind of like on Star Trek or Stargate. You step through one side of this fold and you end up in another building. If you really want to read the book or listen to it, stop listening now, because I'm going to give something away that you might not want to know. So, okay, you've had fair warning. It's not a transporter. It's a dimensional portal, and every time one of these scientists go through it, they end up in another parallel universe. And at first, that's not a big deal, but things start to get strange, and the divergence of events in these different worlds start to have greater and greater consequences. So basically, every time you go through that portal, you're not in your world anymore. You're in a different world that's similar to yours, and those similarities get farther and farther apart the longer that gate is open. And bad things happen, and the book ends in a cliffhanger. So it was published in June 2015. I hope they make another one, because I want to know what happens. But yeah, it's a good read if you like science fiction. I think you'd probably enjoy it. So yeah, that was my daily rant. Yeah, bye.